What do men think women like, but they really don't? Jackhammer fingering. WTF are you doing? Being a tough guy? Egged starting fights in public over shit that's not worth a fight. You don't look big and bad, just embarrassing. My ex seemed to think I was interested in hearing about the sex he had with women before me. No thanks, dude. Showing off, flexing, comparing yourself to others in order to brag. Some guys think it makes them look cool, but it just makes them look insecure. Having a massive dick. At a certain point, it just hurts and feels annoying. Being a nice guy. Women want a guy who is nice, not a disciplined pet who does whatever they say. Which TV show never had a decline in quality? KU. Started out at rock bottom, never declined. Malcolm in the Middle was fantastic from start to finish. Hal is one of the best TV dads in history. Avatar: The Last Airbender original cartoon. It's cliche to say and obvious, but Breaking Bad? Everybody is saying the obvious ones, so I may add Gravity Falls, 2 seasons, a clear story, good ending, good twists along the way, and great cast of characters. The original Tom and Jerry from 1940, 1958-ish were just gold. The Good Place? I don't think it even had a bad episode. The writers and performers brought their A game each time. What do women do that men would never think about? Panic when they sneeze during their period. That when we fart, sometimes it rolls up your vagina. Exit through the gift shop. Checking the seat on those special leak days. Share their location with their friends. Smell my vaginal discharge to check if anything's wrong. That if we don't want to continue interacting with you anymore, 90% of the time, it's not about your looks. What is the most important lesson we learned from the pandemic? That it wouldn't take much for civilized people to turn on each other. That I enjoy staying 6 feet away from people, minimum. You can work from home effectively. That a very limited number of people have the ability to even consider they might be wrong. We need to stop saying avoid it like the plague, because people don't do that. The COVID lockdown has taught us 3 things. 1. Our economy collapses as soon as it stops selling useless stuff to over-indebted people. 2. It is perfectly possible to reduce pollution. 3. The lowest paid people in the country are essential to its functioning. Which celebrity had everything but then lost it all? Oscar Pistorius. He was an international inspiration to handicapped people. Then he was a murderer. Aaron Hernandez. From NFL career worth a few million to prison and suicide. Armie Hammer. Went from Hollywood star to selling timeshares in the Caribbean. I'm surprised not to have seen Rudy Giuliani on here already. America's mayor after 9/11 put the New York crime families behind bars. And not only did he file for bankruptcy last year, but he was charged in Georgia under the same RICO laws he himself developed to prosecute the mafia in New York. After 9/11, all he had to do was nothing. Literally nothing. His place in history was sealed. His fall from that pedestal to national punchline is genuinely extraordinary. Harvey Weinstein. Deserved to, too. Robert Downey Jr. was a popular and talented actor with a major substance abuse problem. In and out of rehab, jail, and prison for years. Infamous incident where he broke into a neighbor's house and passed out in one of their beds. He explained in 1999 to a judge, "It's like I have a shotgun in my mouth, and I've got my finger on the trigger, and I like the taste of the gunmetal." At absolute rock bottom, he had absolutely lost it all. His wife left and took their son. He was homeless, near bankrupt, and unemployable. If anyone wanted to hire him, they couldn't, because no insurance would cover a production he was on. He finally reached a point where he wanted to get clean, not being forced to get clean by others. He was fortunate to have friends who still wanted to help him find work and could afford to sponsor him. He came so close to being another tragic story of imagine what he could have done if he'd lived. Recovered and became one of the top grossing actors of all time, award-winning, respected and admired. From the top to the bottom, then back to the top and blew the roof off. People who went from poor to rich slowly. What was the saddest truths you learned about people on your climb to wealthy? That people, especially family, tend to want you to only be so successful, not so much that you get above them by too much. This is coming from a perspective of growing up poor around poor people. You'll get a lot of, "Do you think you're better than us?" and then get "please for help, money" in the same sentence. There was a point where I had to start hiding my salary from my family because then they expected me to foot the bill on certain things. Wealthy people do indeed lose perspective on the struggles of others who are less fortunate. Money buys happiness to an extent. It can buy things that make you happy and decrease sources of stress. You will never have enough money. As you get used to better quality stuff, it's so difficult to downgrade. So you just begin needing more and more money. And it was easier to be hypocritical about people's values when I was less fortunate financially. 3 things. 1, the more things you have, the more things are required. Buy a boat and you have a trailer, a dock, insurance, boat cover, annual maintenance, etc. It is true for literally everything. 2, I am also surprised how many people have amazing things and are in serious debt. I have been lucky, and a lot of hard work has allowed me to not carry any debt outside of my mortgage in the last 20 years. If I can't pay cash, I don't buy it. I know so many people with expensive stuff that are overloaded in debt. 3, I feel bad that people are so appreciative of money. My wife and I pay for a lot of things for others. They are always overboard with thanks. But I tell them, it's not hard for a person with money to give it to people they care about and enjoy. What is a lot harder to share is my time. That is truly limited. And if I want you to go on a great vacation with me, and I pay for everything, so you can go and not worry about the cost, it's the fact that I want to spend my time with you that matters. It means you are very important to me, and I appreciate you. Stay away from those who envy you. They can really harm you. Also, people see only who you are now, not who you were then. And they may think you didn't work for it. What historical event do you think has had the most profound impact on shaping the modern world, and why do you believe its effects are so significant? The invention of the printing press? Game. Changed. Knowledge spreading like wildfire, books popping up everywhere. It's like the OG version of going viral. The invention of vaccines. Go visit a 100-year-old graveyard and see how many children died young from preventable diseases. The moon landing. It made everything seem possible. There was only 70 years from the first flight to landing on the moon. Drilling for oil? It's popular to hate right now, but all of modern society advanced rapidly because of it. I think the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. It started WW1, which incidentally resulted in WW2, which both wars have shaped the world exponentially. To be honest, WW1 was going to happen regardless. Ferdinand was just a convenient excuse. Lots of nations wanted a war, because up until then, war was good for business. It let you gain power, wealth, territory, and reputation. Very few were aware that the mechanization that had happened would cause it to be as bad as it was. In fact, it likely would have happened earlier had it not been for a few people aware of how bad a war would be, working to push it back further and further. The Battle of Tours in 732. Being the culmination of the Muslim invasions in Western Europe is pretty significant in itself, but victory in the battle essentially gave the leaders the legitimacy to establish the ruling dynasties of all of medieval Europe. What are the golden words that every guy wants to hear? I'm proud of you. I feel like they appreciate those words the most. Hey you're finally awake. You were trying to cross the border, right? I notice all the things you do for us. Thank you. You make me feel safe. You don't actually have to come with. You can stay home. I wouldn't change a thing about you. Sir, the moon has been destroyed as you ordered. What is the worst thing that a person can put on their bio on a dating app? Legally, I can't be around kids, so no single parents. Similarly, love hiking, but cannot go to parks or within 500 feet of a school. I never use this app. Follow me on Instagram. I'm sure you guys have seen it online, but the people that have a checklist of 20+ requirements, like must have a job, must be 5'5", must be under 120 pounds, must not have kids, must know how to cook, must know how to cast spells, must know how to do a backflip. Nothing about themselves, but a 20-point list of demands for the partner they're looking for. I'm an open book. Just ask. That is so incredibly lazy and uninteresting. Ask me anything with a blank profile. Medical professionals. What's a fact about human health you think everyone should know? A sedentary lifestyle is bad for you, even if you're a healthy BMI range. Get yourself moving. Drink water when thirsty. No soft drinks, no juice, just plain water. In addition, give water to your kids, because if they regularly get soft drinks when feeling thirsty, you are conditioning them into connecting thirst with soft drinks. These are the people that will say, I don't like water, water doesn't taste good. A large proportion of possible health and dietary issues can be prevented by just stick to this simple rule. This of course excludes special dietary needs, but in general, it's a good thing. Strength training is so important for both men and women. It doesn't matter how you do it, staying strong across middle and old age is immensely beneficial. Physically and mentally. Sleeping less than 5 hours a day increases risk of heart disease by 75% and shortens your lifespan. It also increases risk of Alzheimer's disease and dementia in general. So sleep well, lads. You probably don't know shit about the hymen, even if you think you do. Even in medical communities, I see references to the hymen being analogous to the protective film on an iPad when you buy one. And I want to clear up some common myths and misconceptions about the hymen. The hymen is not a magical freshness seal over the vagina that many people think it is. The hymen is a thin rim of stretchy tissue, NSFW, that surrounds but doesn't usually obstruct the entrance to the vagina. Another NSFW image and another. These are considered intact hymen, showing no obvious tears or damage. Some women have very little noticeable hymen, and some are born without one at all. I know what you're thinking. If it's not a virginity freshness seal, what the hell is it for? Great question. It's thought that the hymen may serve its purpose early in life, providing an extra tissue barrier to prevent fecal bacteria from getting into the vagina during infancy and childhood. In children, the hymen is a thicker and less flexible ring, and may or may not obstruct more of the opening of the vagina, again, not generally covering it completely. As it is less flexible in childhood, trauma to the vaginal area through sports, gymnastics, horseback riding, and other normal activities can damage the hymen early in life, and even sometimes later in adolescence or adulthood, but less often. These tears may heal completely or result in notching of the tissue. This is a super NSFW medical photo of a young person who experienced sexual assault and trauma to the hymen resulting in notching. This doesn't always cause visible damage, but in this case, pretty severe tearing occurred. It's also worth noting that the sports and activities I mentioned are more likely than others to cause hymenal damage, but usually don't. A good friend of mine was quite surprised at an OB-GYN visit to discover she had an intact hymen at 24 years of age, having been a competitive horseback rider since she was a small child. During adolescence, the hymen thins out and becomes very flexible and stretchy, and will actually stretch really well during arousal and when lubricated. So there is no need, in like 90% of women, for the hymen to tear during sex, even the first time. There are certain variations that can be problematic for sexual activity and general health. For example, imperforate hymens are medically dangerous and result in an inability to have penetration and a buildup of menses, and semi-imperforate or cribriform hymen may allow menses but won't allow penetration. These hymen require either tearing or a quick OB-GYN visit to fix. However, more than 90% of women do not have these variations. A lot of this wasn't even known until a series of studies in the 1980s found that about 20% of sexually active women had intact hymens, with no signs of notching or tearing. A report by physicians who evaluated children and women who were vaginally assaulted noted that a lack of specific hymenal damage in the assault was actually quite common, especially in adult women and adolescents, and suggested to the public that tearing the hymen was not the necessity for sex that many people think it is. A more recent study in 2004 found that 52% of sexually active women had no hymenal notching or clefts. In several studies afterward, there was also found to be no statistically significant association between tampon use and visible hymenal tears. However, it is thought that using tampons can sometimes cause tears. I mean, who is actually aroused and comfortable when inserting a tampon, right? It's common for people to believe the myth that the hymen must tear the first time, and for young, inexperienced people to have sex without proper arousal, lubrication, and communication that results in hymen tearing. In fact, the expectation of pain often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, with women too nervous to be aroused properly and unwilling to stop and slow down their partners when something hurts. You might be thinking, well, this is some liberal bullshit propaganda, if I've ever heard any. But if that's your thought, check out this super biased religious journal article regarding the hymen, which actually confirms most of this and adds some interesting tidbits. For example, the fact that elephants have been noted to have hymens as well. And these don't tear with sex, but only with childbirth. Empty your bladder when you feel the need to go. Don't delay it too often. Not a doctor or surgeon or whatever, but worked at a pharmacy. Dose makes poison. Stop overusing medication. Follow the instructions on the goddamn bottle. But it doesn't do enough. Talk with a pharmacist or your doctor. Most people have no idea how their meds work and think just taking more will lead to better results. This can kill you in some cases, and worse, ruin your organs in others. For the love of God, stop f***ing around with meds. It won't be fun for anyone when you find out. Well, that's another episode of Ask Reddit in the books. I really appreciate all of you who made it this far into the video. Of course, if If you enjoyed this video, it would really help the channel out a lot if you gave the video a thumbs up, subscribe, or leave a comment down below. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.